So before we get started in the video today, I have a question for you. What color would you paint this car? And there's been a lot of conversation about the 67 in the orange frame and the green. I just want to go over that really quickly with why we chose what we did. So the orange basically is just a high contrast color. That was the idea. The green is essentially the stock factory Linden green, just without metallic. The whole idea of the car is to be essentially a muted main color and a pop of color here and there. You really won't see the orange very much at all once the inner fenders are on. But that said, it should give little pops of color here and there. So today's goal is to get the rear end of the Le Mans totally torn apart. The idea is to have the control arms out, the springs, shocks, and the rear end itself probably out today. The idea of that is that we can get the rear bushings totally done. We can knock out blasting and cleaning the control arms, put the new springs in, get the ride height about where we want it, and get the bushings in. The goal is to make some real progress in this car today. So you saw the rear end comes off of the rear of the control arm. Now we're to the front. The front has a whole access port right here to go to the bolt head. And then the nut is on the back side. So we're using 3/4 inch sockets just to kind of break it loose, because these are usually pretty well solid on there. So let's take a good extension, our breaker bar, and I just want to kind of loosen this. This has been pre-sprayed for, God, 6 days, I do believe. Okay, so the control arm is off. The lower control arm is finally off, so we can get to, so I'm gonna start by getting these bushings out. So a lot of people have asked us how we do our bushings in our cars. It can be extremely expensive and extremely difficult to do. We're gonna show you the easiest way possible and also the cheapest way possible to get it done. In this example, we are using control arms, lower control arms from a 1967 GTO or Le Mans. Supplies to Chevelles, a bunch of other old things like that. So this is the rear lower control arm. Essentially what a lot of guys will do is they will switch these out for either rubber or poly bushings. They are factory with rubber. Rubber is softer than poly. We'll have a video on that here soon. Once that is posted, there will be a link up here that will send you to that video if you guys want to see that. But we're going to begin by getting the things around we need to actually strip this of what it is, the bushings. So this applies to the upper and lower control arms for the front and rear of the car. We've done the same process on both. So let's get rocking on this. First thing we're gonna need is some all thread, washers, sockets, and maybe a ball joint pulling kit, but we're gonna try not to use that because this is the cheapest way possible. So what we're using here to make life super easy is PV blaster, sleeve, or a large socket. It really depends on what size your bushing is for your control arm, what you need. What you can do is buy a set of ball joint sleeves and collars, and not buy the ball joint tool, because usually that ball joint tool is actually too short, even though it does work for bushings on occasion. But we're going to use that, some all thread. This is 1/2 inch all thread, large washer, plate, something that matches the outside diameter of this, a chisel. If you have a pneumatic chisel, it makes life way easier. So we're gonna pre-soak this, because this is gonna slide through here. I'm gonna show you how I remove this. Take your chisel and hammer. Okay, so now that these are at least somewhat folded in, take our all thread. This is the side I'm going to push on, because this side is the one that's going to come out on. So what we have set up is our all thread with the nut and 2 washers going through to push. We want this side shallow so that we can get a socket on or an impact and walk it through with a ratchet or break your bar or something like that if you have to. You make sure your sleeve clears that. Well guys, this probably didn't work out. A lot of times that method doesn't work on older vehicles. If you've got new control arms or something that's like 2000 and newer, not nearly as rusty, that method works really, really well. A lot of times what we have to do is soak them for a couple of days in like PB Blast or some kind of penetrating oil. Take a air chisel to them, crush them down in the center, and then push them out. I'll show you what I'm saying on this one I crush. So before you even start crushing in this middle, you really want to crush the outside on the side you're going to slide through. What that's going to do is it's going to shrink the outside diameter of the bushing itself and help you pull it out. It makes life so much easier. So once that's done, you hit that center sleeve and hopefully it'll push itself out. A lot of times it doesn't. If it doesn't, you have this area on the edge that you rolled over that you can now use as a platform to actually hit with a chisel to walk it out. Once it's walked out a little bit, what you're going to do is hit the edge of the actual bushing itself and just kind of top, bottom, you know, walking the bushing out of the control arm. Not a fun process, not an easy process, it all kind of sucks. Unless you have a press that actually works. We don't. I hate my press.
Earlier in the video I mentioned to keep your bushing sleeve. What we're going to use that for is the actual spacer between the control arm itself. So we know it's the right size basically because it came out of there. So we're going to cut it in half, splice it a little bit, cut it a little shorter. We're going to keep the hump on there so that fits directly over top of the ridge inside the control arm. So with that done, you can see we can pop it right in place, a little bit of tape, a little bit of weld for a handle. Put a sleeve over top of the open side so the bushing pushes inside of there. Here we're going to use a ball joint tool, but you can also use all thread or something like that if you want to go that route. A large socket and like another plate or something like that. I've used a wonder bar in the past or a flat bar in the past to push them in. The big thing is making sure you have enough surface area so you're not just crushing through the bushing, because you can totally ruin your bushing if you don't have even pressure across the entire thing. So just be very aware of that. If this helped you guys, give us a like, please subscribe because we have more content like this coming out all the time. Have a good one, and I will see you on the road.